Hey guys, Eddie back with Couch Talk. Welcome back to the show. If it's your first time with me, welcome to the show. Guys, please hit like, please hit subscribe, turn your notifications on. I promise if you stick with me, I will earn your viewership. I'll do the work, I'll do whatever it takes. So, Tyre Nichols is the latest victim of police brutality, it seems. Although we don't have full details of the situation yet, but I think that it's pretty clear that, based on the fact that the cops were fired and brought up on criminal charges almost immediately, that safe to say that yeah, he was the victim of police brutality in some form or another. Now that isn't to say that that there were no contributing factors. I think one of the things that we need to do in this situation is first just to acknowledge the pain of the situation, because there's a lot of pain in that community. Tyre Nichols apparently was, had tendrils throughout that community, and his loss will be felt throughout. Also, the cops were also members of their community, and in a sense, it's like that community will probably actually lose 6 people, if not more. Just considering the total loss of the scenario. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today is my advocacy for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And this is why, a situation like this is why I believe every police force, every law enforcement agency in America should be required to take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes regularly. Now, as far as the specifics of the case, like I said, the specifics are pretty limited at the moment because they haven't even released the body cam footage yet at this point. But from what I understand, they pulled him over for an unknown reason. They got him out of the car for an unknown reason, and then an altercation occurred. Now, at this point, this is where everything goes to hell. Now, never mind what happened up to this point, because I think that there's a case to be made that the police never should have pulled him over, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know the circumstances. There's a case to be made that the police should never have gotten him out of the car. I don't know. We don't know what happened. But at this point, this is where, in my mind, there is no excuse for a police officer to not protect the sanctity of life 100% in a scenario like this, where the guy doesn't have a gun, he doesn't have a knife, and I mean, I'm looking at Tyre Nichols. He's not a big guy. He's tall, lanky, maybe even wiry, right? Like maybe he's got some. He's athletic. He did skateboarding and stuff like that. But against 5 police officers who all kind of look kind of thick, they should not have had to use excessive force to bring this kid down. And if they had been trained properly, even, and I'm not even talking about following police procedure. It's obvious that I think they disregarded those as well. But I'm talking about trained properly in how to manage a combat and how to control the scenario of a combat, then none of this would have happened, had to happen. As far as I understand it, there was a fight, and then the pepper spray was used on Mr. Nichols, and then Nichols ran, and then they found him or caught up to him or something like that and fought again. And at which point they basically beat him to death. I mean, it didn't happen right away. He died later in the hospital. And this is an insanely terrible tragedy. And I am frustrated at the police force. Not because they pulled him over, not because they got him out of the car, but because none of them were trained to manage the situation. This goes to a more fundamental problem. And that way everybody's going to say that this is just an evidence of systemic racism, but I don't believe so. I think this is evidence of a fundamental lack of training for police officers. In general, just in general. They can't. Now, I gotta tell you something. With my grappling training, I personally could have easily subdued someone like Tyre Nichols without nearly any injury, right? I could have put him on the ground. Now, I'm not used to putting handcuffs on people, so that might have been like an additional thing. But but once you've got somebody on the ground and you've got control of the game, you don't need much to just, pull. You can control somebody with one arm, basically, after you get there, after you get to that point. You can wrap up, you can tie them up so that they basically can't move, and you have plenty of time to disarm them, to arm yourself, to call the cops. You can do a million different things if you know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if you know grappling. And guys, this is something I recommend for everyone to take some grappling training, not only just for self-defense, but basically if you're a police officer, I think it should be mandatory, because this kind of situation could have been controlled start to finish with nearly zero injury if they had just had the proper training. I know that what's going to happen over the next few days, they're going to want to assign blame, right? It's going to be, whose fault is it? And the answer, guys, to this question is always all of them. Everybody. It's everyone's fault that a situation like this happens. Believe it or not, cops don't just pull cars over for no reason. And believe it or not, they don't just pull cars over because the driver is African American. They pull cars over because they suspect something. Now, if they suspect something because the driver is African American, that's something else. But you got to understand that they pull cars over for valid reasons, and usually they don't get people out of the car unless there's additional probable cause. Now, I would be willing to bet that we will find in this case that there is additional probable cause. Now, ignoring all that, if you're ever pulled over by a police officer, regardless of your race, regardless of your ethnicity, your background, your age, your everything, just do what the cops say. Please, just do what they say. Don't argue, don't fight, don't try to run. Just do exactly what they say, when they say, how they say. Now, I realize that it's hard to put trust in a system that appears biased. I realize that it's hard to put trust in a system that has situations like this. But I promise you that it is better to just do what they say and protect yourself by complying fully with law enforcement than for something like this to happen, right? It's when resistance comes that things like this happen. It is when someone's fighting that things like this happen. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not saying that forgives the police for doing what they did. I am not saying that alleviates their responsibility. No, quite the opposite. In fact, I am 100% telling you that the police in this situation screwed up, start to finish. Start to finish, they screwed up. That doesn't mean Mr. Nichols didn't also screw up. But the thing is police training is supposed to manage somebody else screwing up, right? That's the whole point. Right? The whole point of police in the first place is to manage situations where everything isn't going well, right? That's why police exist, is for criminals, right? Is to protect us against people who are not going to do what they're supposed to do, right? If they can't manage a simple situation like this where Mr. Nichols didn't have a weapon that I'm aware of, didn't cause any serious bodily injury to any of the police officers, didn't create any serious threat. I mean, sure, yeah, he ran, right? He was resisting arrest. I think that's safe to say. But come on, guys. Put him on the ground. Tie him up. It does not take much to do an arm bar or a rear naked choke or a crucifix. There's a million different things that they could have done. One person could have done it, but with 5 of them, they could have each grabbed a limb. I just don't get it. I really don't get why this was so complicated to manage. Maybe when the video comes out, that'll enlighten us to some of the details. Guys, let me know what you think. Put your comments below. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see any reason why the police shouldn't have been able to manage this situation relatively peacefully without any serious injury. Don't get me wrong. I think that sometimes it is necessary to subdue an unruly suspect, but I don't think that this was one of those times, really. I don't think this is one of those times where it would take physical blows like, beating somebody. I think that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is one of those things that makes it possible for police to manage a situation without this kind of violence. Let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you next time on Couch Talk.